Initially, there is only phenomena. We have not yet apprehended it or even separated ourselves from it. What we normally think of as our self has not yet begun to occur. There is only phenomena. As my hand makes contact with this spiderweb, a distinction arises. Something is there, and this something is separate from me. It's not me. This is the first skandha, that of form, establishing the fact that this particular phenomena is out there, that it is world and not me. In the next split second, a three-way division occurs. The phenomena being apprehended is experienced as either pleasurable, unpleasurable, or neutral, that is, having no effect one way or the other. This is the second skandha, feeling, a slightly more granular sorting of the world than simply me or not me. This is where our fundamental orientation towards the phenomena begins. If the apprehension is pleasurable, we want to move towards the object. If unpleasant, we want to move away or push it away. If it is neutral, it is likely that we go no farther with the object. We skip over it, and it begins to disappear. This fundamental orientation towards the phenomena is the first glimmer of self. The me that is arising begins right here, as we move towards or away from the phenomena. The next skandha, the third skandha, is the skandha of perception. The phenomena is perceived in terms of our senses. It feels soft, wet, clingy. Not only is it perceived, but these perceptions get named: soft, wet, clingy. The object as a whole also gets named: spiderweb. And now that these specific perceptions are expressed in language, the words that are attached to these perceptions also become thought objects, above and beyond the phenomena itself. Here's where things start to get interesting. This spiderweb now exists in two forms: as the original phenomena, which is making its way through the five skandhas, but now also as a named object of thought in our heads. The original encounter will continue to develop into the higher skandhas, but the thought objects, the words clingy, wet, and spiderweb, are mental formations that are independent of that original encounter. These are phenomena in their own right. So we begin to encounter these newly created phenomena, these thought objects, at the level of the first skandha. These thought objects, because they are self-generated, are experienced as me, and so they begin their own journey through the five skandhas, on the me side of this dual self and world emergence. These thought objects, the words spiderweb, clingy, soft, are our thoughts. So in the second skandha, we instinctively pull them closer. These thought objects then enter the third skandha, perception. Perhaps we like clingy, soft things. Perhaps we hate them. Now we have formed yet another layer of thought objects, our feelings about our sensations. These feelings cycle back to the first skandha and enter by way of the me side of the division. You can see how these feedback loops are starting to form a self, one composed of feelings, sensations, and a narrative about the world, and it's all rapidly arising in response to the original phenomena. Let me remind you what the point is here. Normally, we think there's a fully formed self that enters each moment and encounters the world. But what we are watching right here is how a complete psychological moment of self is arising in response to a single phenomenal encounter. We are not seeing a persistent entity that is moving from moment to moment through a world that is separate from it. We are not seeing a self that encounters a spiderweb. In the fourth skandha, an important change happens. The word that we attach to the phenomena in the third skandha, spiderweb, gets changed into a concept. Originally, when we attach the word spiderweb to the phenomena in the third skandha, it's just a word. a symbol. But when you and I think spiderweb, it's far more than a label or word. Spiderweb is an elevated concept. It includes the idea of a spider catching flies, spinning gossamer strands, dewdrops, and so on. Most of us are somewhat conflicted on spiderwebs. We don't really like them, but most of us grew up reading the children's book Charlotte's Web, where the spider saves a pig's life, and so we have deeply mixed feelings about spiders and spiderwebs in general. The spiderweb that we're talking about now does not exist in the world. It exists only in our heads. It's a concept. Concepts occur when we have organized a large amount of experience into a single idea about a phenomena. So in the fourth skandha, the original phenomenal encounter rapidly matures into a fairly complex idea or mental formation, in this case, one that vaguely includes world ecology and children's books. We are not now so much experiencing the world as attempting to explain it to ourselves. We are constructing a full-scale narrative about the world. Spiders are not very pleasant, but they mean well and are important for the environment. This is how the skandhas arrive at a moment of self. Raw contact with phenomena has evolved into a moment of you. A moment of world has also been generated, one that includes a fully understood spiderweb. The fifth skandha, consciousness, weaves everything together. All the elevated concepts from the fourth skandha result in volition, a conscious act. You carefully push the spiderweb out of the way, instead of thrashing at it and destroying it. It's all quite an amazing process, and this happens so seamlessly from moment to moment as we encounter one phenomena after another, that it feels like a continuous self is experiencing the world. But the point of the five skandhas is the opposite. This continuous self that we are experiencing is being generated on the fly by our contact with world. And that's not all. The world that gets generated, in which you carefully brush away the spiderweb, feels very real. But what you brush away is not the original phenomena. You brush away your concept. Your concept is what you encountered and interacted with. This seems rather innocent, and the result was good. We did not kill the spider. But it's also a little problematic, because almost everything that goes through the fourth skandha, almost everything you experience, turns into a concept. So each waking moment of your life gets populated with concepts that you yourself have generated, like this spiderweb, and you start experiencing these instead of the world itself. So a woman comes through the door, but I don't see a woman. I see my mother-in-law. I do not see a communication device. I see my iPhone. I do not see a man standing on the corner. I see a homeless guy. The problem is this: none of these things are real. They don't actually exist in the world. There is no such actual physical thing as a mother-in-law, or my iPhone, or that homeless guy. These are elevated concepts that we generated ourselves, and as we transition from the fourth to the fifth skandha, we substitute in these concepts for the original phenomena themselves. The fifth skandha is where all five skandhas coalesce into our clear, self-directed moments of self. It is the continuous stream of these self-directed moments that add up to a person that we experience as me. But by the time the fifth skandha rolls around, we are quite often interacting entirely with our own concepts, like our mother-in-law, our iPhone, or a street person. So the moments of self and world that we are experiencing are, to a large degree, arising from our own concepts about the world, and not from the world itself. If I narrate one or two of these fifth skandha self-directed moments, you will see this. You will see that these moments of self are completely saturated with concepts, elevated structures, that I myself have generated, and that this is the landscape I'm moving through, not the world itself. My mother-in-law is someone to be endured, because I wish to keep the peace with my wife. So I smile and say something pleasantly conversational when she comes through the door. My iPhone is a part of my identity, and I feel a bit lost if I forget it at home. I angle across the street to avoid the homeless guy, but not in a way that's too obvious. Notice that all these elevated concepts, mother-in-law, iPhone, homeless guy, and so on, are now part of a mental narrative. All these concepts are concepts about the world, about how the world is. So they form a storyline, and not just a storyline. It's an important storyline, an energized storyline, one that's determining our actions. Crossing the street, smiling superficially. We think all these concepts that we have generated are real things, and we are constantly interacting with them, and we are convinced that we are moving through the world. We don't see that we are moving through our own storyline of the world, one that includes mother-in-laws, iPhones, and spiderwebs. And in this storyline, all of our concepts are extended in both space and time.